Sweet. Welcome to another Tuesday Triggers podcast session. Today, we're going to do a nice quick session with Brandon Charlson, top of funnel. If you guys don't know, Brandon is like some of the best. He is, I think, the most high level AI operator. There's a couple other people that I can think of that can hang with you, right? But like, there was a time when I think early on when some of this stuff was coming out, and I think that I felt like I was kind of at the peak of it, and I was really good. And I was like, I don't think people can do what I can do. And then, agency life happens and you start managing your agency. And that's what my thing came. But for you, you have continued to literally scale this mountain as things are continuously changing. So to give a bit of a background, and you can talk about this yourself, but you've got your agency, you're working with some of the main sending platforms, and you're still just an absolute, and pardon my, like, don't take this offensively, but you are an AI geek to the core. And so let's spend, like, maybe the next 20, 30 minutes talking about where you see that shaping lead gen, what types of things you're doing, and let's try and do some, I'd say some like kind of introductory stuff that people might be able to use and impact their Clay workflows and some of that stuff for a beginner user. And then, like, maybe if you want to talk about some high level concepts that maybe more advanced users could use, that would be awesome. But outside that, obviously, we always keep it casual on Tuesday Triggers. So let's just jump into it, man. What are you working on? What's getting you excited right now?
Well, I appreciate the intro, man. Just trying to stay sharp, and share as much because we're all learning in this together is the way I see it. There's a lot of exciting things that are happening out, but there's also a lot of noise. And then you just got to keep experimenting. But then just like you're a business owner, you have expectations and things you got to deliver on. And there's only, everybody puts their pants the same way I do. So you only get 24 hours and that's all you get, right? So yeah, I mean, it's exciting, man. Some things that we've been working on that's really just kind of consume me just because, you kind of find what you love to do. You find passion in things and working with AI and large language models. I feel like we're kind of seeing a fork in the road when it comes to LLMs. We're seeing the consumer grade of Chat GPT and the very surface level stuff that, everybody in the world or, a portion of them are using. But then we're also seeing a really big, scenarios where they could actually be business use, and kind of like what we're doing in the very early stages of Clay is the prompt engineering and the use cases for actual business, real business use cases is just getting bigger and bigger. And I feel like it's a buzzword, but it's just what it is. But we all talk about agents, right? So some of the things that I think are trending is number one, I don't think anybody really defines agent. Like everybody has their own definition. But in my opinion, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I really feel like it's important to know a lot of people are forcing AI agents into things that don't need to be agentic. It's just overcomplicating simple shit. And I can cuss, right? And
Yeah, yeah, dude,
for
absolutely.
example, I think even Xavier asked that too. He's like, "Yeah, can I cuss?"
Yeah, we don't give a shit here, so you're all good.
But I think that agents is a lot of times not even necessary for some of the very service level and things that we need to do. And I boil it down to even what is an agent like in the real world, right? You have real estate agents, you have sports agents, you have all sorts of different agents where they are literally a person that's doing something on your behalf. Or, in my opinion, an agent is basically somebody that can figure whatever they're doing out. They know enough, or they know enough people in that space to actually figure the shit out and execute. And that's kind of what, in my opinion, an agent is. So if you're applying AI to an agent, it's really giving them the tools and the abilities and the knowledge to figure the shit out and do it on your behalf, and do it in such a way that you're not going to get errors or hallucinations, things like that. And so
It's
some of
like
the
being
things that,
a really smart, well-connected person, but like a generalist. But like if
yes.
you need something focused, you call your friend that's this person, and they go get the answer and they bring it back to you.
Yep, that's exactly it. Absolutely. So, with Clay, obviously there's the GOAT Claygent that a lot of people use for a number of things, which is a very simple AI agent in my opinion, but it has access to the web. You can apply a number of things depending on the LLM that you tie to it. But I think it's safe to say a lot of us usually use the cheapest model to do big tasks, and then you may or may not find your result consistent, especially at scale.
Okay, so let me break that down simply because I would love to learn about some new ways to utilize Clayagent more effectively. I think most of us use just Clayagent with 4.0 Mini, right?
Mhm.
How could that be used maybe more effectively?
Great question. So if we're using 4.0 mini or any sort of small model that is cheap, right? Like Llama 4 is now out there, can't be used with Claygent as of yet, but these small models, they're very effective when prompted right. And, I've tested 4.0 mini against like oh 03 mini and like even reasoning models just to be able to take some heavy tokens. I mean, feed it somewhere in the range of 4 to 6,000 tokens, which is basically an entire chunk of prompting, right? And I would say the way I find people usually using large language models like 4.0 mini, which is a small model in the context of AI, they're throwing too much, too broad at the model to where it's trying to resolve or output something for a really ambiguous result. And so to be more effective, Claygent now has the ability to output things like JSON. And so that really grounds the output in such a way that is going to be consistent. And then even so much as the actual response, you can have it respond instead of having a paragraph of shit to respond and read to take the workflow further. A lot of times you can actually ground the AI to do Boolean, like true or false, to have a result be true or not, right? You can also do a different categories. And so I would say to make it more effective, you want to have really sound, long prompts where, in my opinion, sometimes a prompt should take you, it could take you an hour, it could take you all day, it could take multiple days. But then what you want to do is similar to Clay use case, right? We have repeatable actions that we want to automate and apply scale to it. It's no different when prompt engineering. A lot of times your prompt is so refined and so robust that that's actually a new asset that you should save and templatize, right? And so a lot of times when you bring up a Clayagent, something simple as like normalizing first names so you don't have an emoji in front of a name, right? Or taking unstructured data and making it more structured so you can use that more effectively in something like lead scoring versus quantifying other data points. You know what I mean? So I think to use these small models and actually make solid prompts where you're defining the role, you're given the task and the parameters around that task. You're also giving it good examples and bad examples of that. And then most importantly, you're controlling the output at which you want the Clayagent to actually output. So that is the frameworks that we follow. And to me, it's what makes sense.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Here's a good example. I said, like, early in my career, I felt like I was early in this industry and early in AI. I felt like I was ahead of the game because that's exactly what we were doing, right? Really good system and user prompts. And if you don't know how to do that, like, you can basically reverse engineer that by asking it to spit it out like that, right?
Uh-huh.
And so, like, really refined, okay, here's the system prompt, user prompt, spit it out in JSON, organize it, and then go and rework that. And this is just me, right? This is a year ago. So this could be totally outdated right now. But at the time, the thing was, okay, tell it like, your life depends on it, and tell it all of this other stuff. And that's where it was like, that wasn't making it more effective. Now, again, there's still ways to do that, right? And so, like, Jordan is my really tight homie, and his method of reverse engineering and his cannonball stuff is amazing. And his method is talk to Claude, right? Talk to Gemini, have a really comfortable conversation, spit it out. And then there's the other side that's organize the hell out of it. I think both are good for different use cases, and maybe you can talk about what your opinions are here. But yes, giving it structured data to get structured output is really incredible and incredibly important if you've got something you want consistency on, right? If you want to do creative flows and reverse engineer things and have it go search the web and pull you back stuff, maybe some of that more conversational stuff is quicker, easier, dirtier, but really more effective and more creative. But yeah, you got to know both sides. And I think that the structured output is like oftentimes something that people don't know. And a real easy way to like dial that in for a basic user is like, okay, once you've created the prompt, prompt it to create a more structured prompt.
Yep.
Say, hey, I'm trying to feed this into, I need this to be a much more better prompt. I'd like a system and a user prompt or whatever, and then kick that out, right? But that's just, again, that's me. I'd love to hear your advice on how someone can
Yep.
take just some simple steps where someone can take what they're currently doing and give it just a little more finesse.
Like you said, Christian, I mean, call it what it is, prompt leveraging, whatever, but come up with your 101 prompts and then feed that into something like O1 or O3 or some larger reasoning model to make your prompt even that more robust, clear, concise, give it good, bad examples and definitive outputs, and then use that to scale up the prompt. Absolutely.
So you got a good prompt, you go to O1, O3, one of those two and say, hey, help me make this prompt better, help me structure it better so I get more consistent outputs.
Mhm.
Ask me any questions that you need more information on. If you need examples, tell me, and like help me refine this, right? And that's
Absolutely.
probably what will help you just kick out, like it'll say, hey, here's a couple questions. You answer those, it's going to just help refine it and give it a much more structured output.
Yep, absolutely. This depends on the actual user too, but I think we can all agree that we can talk faster than we can type. So talking to the model through voice to text, things like that, where it doesn't transfer through your fingers, no matter how slow or fast you might type. But I feel like if you just can go direct and do voice, I'm finding myself making some super, and I know Jordan does this too. A lot of us use like super whisper and all that, but you can say a whole lot more and then have the prompt spit it out versus typing it out, because there might be some other areas that you might miss because of the process of actually typing it out.
Totally. Stream of consciousness, man. That's
Yep.
Jordan aced that and has kind of spread that as just using that tool. So you use Super Whisper. I use Whisper Flow. I think for anyone that's watching this, it's WISPR
Yep.
Flow. And you just hold down a button on your keyboard and you just talk to it, right? And
Yep.
so for me, I'm generally doing that with Claude and OpenAI, but like more so on like the just like the Chat GPT stuff, right?
Yep.
And maybe you're doing it on everything, but it helps you just talk to it in a way where you can get all of those thoughts out, where you don't lose anything because you're sitting there typing it, right? It's just easier
Uh-huh.
to chat. So that's good advice. What else you got? What are some other tips that could help people?
Well, I think the newest trend, I mean, it came out as of November of last year, but it's finally starting to really go viral, is MCP. It's basically a new way to standardize APIs, like REST APIs. And there's a lot of friction, but there's a lot of push in terms of how that's working, for more production use. It's still, in my opinion, a bit immature and still more experimental. But I mean, you can still use it. In fact, even N8n just released it for their pre-release models or the versions, which can be done. And MCP is like a whole other topic, but it's a basically way to standardize API calls or function calls, even beyond APIs. But it's basically a way for agents to take a group of tools or API endpoints or function calls and be able to make better sound decisions based on around that, without having to deal with hard coding APIs or doing any sort of payload stuff. It just kind of figures it out. And like, even for me, you can even build one, within Cursor and stuff. But go ahead.
Well, what's a use case? Why don't we like what would be an example use case in which you would use this?
Absolutely. So like for Cursor, for example, there are file system, or even Claude, the desktop app. There are file system actions that you can do, like update this file or update this notion or send this to my CRM. You can even push an instantly campaign. Any actions, basically the way we execute tools. You can do a scrape a website. These are similar to just doing function calls that we are normally used to, but it actually groups it in a way so that way if you have a lot of tools attached to an LLM, that it's actually going to make the right selection, and it's going to be a lot more scalable, because if an API or if anything gets updated, then it's not hard coded. It allows the LLM to actually talk to that function a lot more appropriately.
You gotta make some content on this, bro. You gotta make a use case. I gotta see it. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's great, man. And especially in NAN. Here's another one, just as a thought. So we have obviously usually small, medium, and large, and then reasoning models, right? That's kind of the Rolodex of models. And so Claude just also released maybe a month or so ago a think tool. It's just a think tool. So really, what you're doing is you're taking a standard LLM like Claude or anything like that, and now what it can do is actually use like a second brain without going to another larger model. And if it actually needs to take time to actually think about something, it'll actually pull in additional resources and use the think tool as an example. It's very
This is kind of
crazy.
like the what a lot of people are talking about from what I've heard is like, yeah, we do have small, medium, large, think, reasoning. Like now we need again as we step closer to AGI is like the thing that can decide. I mean, it's got to be able to switch naturally between these talk tracks. Not every
Yep.
like a problem may have something where it's just really simple, but then the second part of it is like really, really complex. And I think like that's one of the issues
I agree.
that
I
people are.
think some of the things that, for example, Meta's doing, yeah, DeepSeek is doing this, but you have a mixture of experts, a type of LLMs, you have
Yeah.
hybrid ones. I think it's going to be blended. It should be, because why would somebody, I think there's going to be special use case LLMs like reasoning and things like that, where you tie those. But for general consumer grade, it should definitely default to one or the other. Like this is a 5-year-old task, okay, using a small, or this is a professor diagnosis. Okay, obviously we don't want 4.0 mini for that.
Right, right. What a lot of people obviously default to, I would say it's probably 75% using GPT or OpenAI.
Mhm,
20% are Claude, or maybe it's actually, I bet it's, my guess is it's about 50% of people using OpenAI,
mhm.
35% of people using Claude. And then there's this 15% of people I know, like Jordan's been talking about Gemini. But like, what are some other easy large language models that people could get into that might have a good functional use case that they haven't explored yet? That you would say, hey, take a little bit of time out of your day and go check out A, B, and C. Here are the reasons why.
Great question. I like to think of all the LLMs as kind of a line of consultants, and they're all, experts and trained by their mommies and daddies in different ways, like Google to Gemini and things like that. I mean, I think it's obviously, it's assumed, but OpenAI, I think, is one of the best, in terms of 4.0 mini and on and O3. So we use that a lot. I use Claude hugely for copywriting and coding, big time. 3.7 is just a monster. But Gemini 2.5 has actually been really impressive in terms of coding and even copywriting. It's just great, it's cheap. It's not that bad at all. But one I think people are resting on, or maybe it's just early on, but Grok 3 specifically, they just released their API just this past weekend. So it's hugely
Well, no,
effective.
then we are resting on it. They just said we haven't been able to use it, right?
Yes. Well, Grok 3 is just exponentially just getting better and better, and like all of them, right? But to answer your question, I think Grok 3 should be bookmarked and definitely used. But I would say ask who their mommy and daddy is. Obviously Gemini. Well, if you need to do something that's going to involve a Google search, Gemini is probably going to be a good one. If it's general purpose, OpenAI is probably good. If you need some horsepower behind coding, things like that, I'll use Claude. My default, what I usually go to is really OpenAI and Claude. I always have those desktop apps open all the time, but I like to compare outputs to all of them, and then I'll actually aggregate and put them all together if I really need to have a solid research answer. And then I'll compare each one of them. And obviously, there's latency, there's inference, all that kind of stuff. Just depends on what it is.
So, what APIs do you plug into Clay?
Mostly 4.0 mini and Claude 3.7 for copywriting stuff.
Yep.
Yep.
One other thing that I think people maybe aren't using or maybe don't know about as much as like I think like Claude projects are really great. Again, from I've just been using them. I haven't even dug into it. I essentially it seems like you're getting a vector DB with your basically you create a project in Claude and you can start to upload supporting documents. How would someone utilize that? For us, here's one use case. As we get a new client, we take all of their client documents and put them into that project. We can then talk to that project. Another use case is we put all of the client Sybil calls into a project. So we take the call transcripts, we put those into a project, and then we can dig into it. And if we need to say, hey, what give me an overview of like the last 4 weeks of what we've really been focused on, it allows us to get a quick high level snapshot. And so, anyways, those are like some use cases for us that we're starting to use with Claude projects. I don't think that there's really an accessible similarity or similar use case with Gemini or OpenAI, is there?
There is, just depends how you attach it or bind it. But Claude is a powerhouse for that. But Are you talking one off like within the chat bots in terms of?
Yeah, it's just so easy in Claude, right? You just make the project, you drop all of your docs in it, and then you can just mess
Mhm.
around with it. Whereas I think with OpenAI or like Google, I don't
Yeah.
think they have that option. You can
For
do
this,
projects in OpenAI, right? But I don't think that you can put documents in it and load it up like you can with Claude.
well, this is where MCP is going to come in clutch.
Really?
You attach MCP server for like a Pinecone or even throw it to a Supabase DB or something like that. And you put it in your MCP list there. And that's now a tool where the Claude desktop app will be largely running circles around your OpenAI or any desktop app,
Yeah.
any one that you have. But
Yeah, I agree. That was when you were talking about it, it's like that was one of my first use cases or things that came to mind is like, could I just keep an updated knowledge base on all of my clients really easily?
mhm,
Obviously, you can do that with other tools, right? You mentioned a couple there, but it's a lot of lift for a basic user, right? And for the
right,
amount of effort I want to put forth for each one
right.
of I just want to put all the documents somewhere really easily where we can access them. Any other tips or beginner or advanced tips that you want to help people with, whether it's maybe something in Clay that they could do a little better, or something with like a use case for any LLM that they might not have thought of that might impact them positively in lead gen?
Right. Well, I mean, I think this is what I'm seeing anyway. Hopefully others are seeing it. If not, I'm seeing kind of a fork in the road when it comes to, because everybody right now, I mean, a lot of people are using Clay for different use cases, and a lot of people are using N8n or any other automation like Bake for different use cases. Sometimes you'll have workflows that you need to pass through one or the other, but I think the big term here is this a now workflow table like Clay? You need to build a list and do a lead gen, whatever your outbound might be. But the other one too is evergreen. Is this more of a Clay flow where you're doing it right now, and then you have tables and columns upon everything? Like, who wants to recreate that all the time? This might be a good use case for using N8n where it's more evergreen or more operations, right? And so with our clients, we're seeing that, especially having clients for like a year plus now. We're like, okay, I don't necessarily want to keep rebuilding the same table. I'm just going to plug this into an in workflow where it's evergreen, and then you can scale and build on that, right? So I would say, consider the use case and long-term use case of whatever flow people are doing to do more end-to-end build outs, compared to Clay. And then from there, just I'd say do specific prompting for that one thing, especially if you're using 4.0 mini, and then really refine the outputs. Kind of like we talked about. Clay has also been really strong at, coming out with good structured outputs, and then just to really know the task, and then leverage larger models to make your prompts more robust. And then those are new assets, so you can apply those to other clients and things like that internal.
What about all right, so last question before we go. I've been using man, I feel like the early chat GPT days where I've been using like O3 and you get like 5 queries a month or 10 queries or maybe 20 or something like that. And I burned through a lot of them really quickly and I didn't have any for like 3 weeks. And so then I went back to like hoarding them and not using it. Are you feeling that? Am I missing something? Like, have you run through all of yours? Do you have multiple accounts you're using them on? And
Yeah,
I'm sure it's going to be much more accessible, but like obviously if you've used O3 and some of the deeper reasoning, it will reason for like, a couple minutes before it gives you
for
full
sure.
answers.
Yeah, I mean, well, we have, I forget the cap on there. We have the pro and then
But
the
you have the pro, $200 a month?
Yeah,
Look at you.
I just call it good. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna use the shit out of it. And my wife uses it too, so there's that. The work history is like, what the hell? Like grocery items and then this and that. You see all the random stuff, right? But I use the pro, just to be really experimental and just know I have no limitations. But like Claude, you get shut off till like tomorrow at 8 a.m. or whatever. You're like, what the hell, dude?
Yep.
And then Claude released their Max version. So those are like just so you don't burn down their houses or their GPUs, right?
Yeah. I mean we spend, between all of our ClayGen and between our own N8N workflows and obviously RevReply, I mean we're in the fives to tens of thousands a month. And so maybe I should be just popping maybe I should just be getting the pro version. I would like to see some of the like computer vision or I forget what it is where it can actually like the run the tasks on your desktop, but
Yes.
anyways.
Well, I mean, to get to that, I mean, I see some trends, but like if you have a moment, check out Stagehand and Browser Base. Those are good new upcoming ones where it's more front end work, and so they're kind of built on the legacy ones like Selenium, Playwright, and Puppeteer. It just makes it a lot easier to do front end tasks because I think there's going to be some Clay or some workflows that it might be appropriate for that, even like logging into systems and stuff like that, right? So to
Yeah.
have continued sessions versus on the back end. So, but that's all
Man,
combo.
I love how much you're continuing to progress and push this, and man, I'm like a little envious of the level of knowledge, because if you can use it, man, the power is endless, and like again, the next year is gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you for coming on, brother.
Yeah.
Look forward to having you on the call tomorrow. Last thing, for your other project, right? You've got another app coming out for CrossFit.
Mhm.
Any plans to release it or let people beta that or demo it in the coming months?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're testing it for ourselves just for our own workouts, but the overarching goal is to have essentially a custom agent, to come up with workouts based on your fitness level, your equipment, any if you have a bum knee or something like or bad back, okay, well, you shouldn't be probably doing 500-pound deadlifts, right? So,
For me,
uh,
it's gonna be like go outside.
yeah.
Just go outside. Touch the grass wall you have behind you, but
Yes.
actually go out and have the sunshine on your face.
Yeah.
Sick, man. I want to check it out, and definitely want to. So let me know when I can check it out. I'm sure people can reach out to you if they want
Yeah.
to check it out. But
Sounds
cool,
good, bro.
dude. Thank you very much, as always, for the time. Very much appreciate you coming on. Looking forward to the session tomorrow, and talk soon.